Hello, who are you?
Hey, I'm Mitra, and you are?
Hi, I'm Chandra, and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups, technology, and entrepreneurship. This is Mitra, developed by Bengaluru's based Invento Robotics, designed as a customer service robot. I hope she will not replace people on television as well. But this edition of NPC is clearly about innovation that's fueling digital revolution, and startups like these are certainly examples of that, on reimagining various services based on technology. In fact, today Nasscom also released its startup report for 2017, where they spoke about the number of startups that went up this year compared to the previous year, the kind of funding and the gaps needed that need to be fixed. Let's listen in to Nasscom President R. Chandrasekhar in this interview.
We have seen increases in the growth stage, and we have seen in the later stages of the companies significant increases in the funding. The area which is a little problematic is the seed stage funding. While that is not a large in terms of its percentage contribution, it is very important because that is really where the seeds of the future are sown, and we need to ensure that there is sufficient funding for the seed stage. There are a number of different problems there, including the problem of tax on angel investments, for which a solution has still so far proved elusive, although everyone is agreed that it must be sorted out. And then I think there are also, there's much which can be done in terms of the ease of doing business for starting up. Of course, it's a wonderful thing that India has moved up tremendously in the ease of doing business. But that same report also indicates that in terms of starting of a business,
it's actually gone down a rank,
yes,
right?
So that's again an area which needs some attention.
In fact, I was coming to that because if you look at the starting up, the parameters, it's actually taking longer to start a business. I mean, I was just going through the fine print. So, what do you think the government needs to do specifically for startups when it comes to ease of doing business?
I think we have to recognize that today we are in a world where countries are enabling businesses to start up within a day or less, within hours actually. Equally, countries are also enabling businesses to be started remotely, meaning that you can start a business in that country without even having set foot in that country. Estonia and the latest being UAE are examples of that. And therefore, for startups which are in the virtual space, the difficulties on the domestic front can actually lead to many of them looking at other options. So I think it's very, very important that we have to figure out a way of either completely solving the ease of starting a business problem, or at the very least trying to find a way, a shortcut, if you can call it that, for those which are in the IT space, which don't actually have any physical assets and which may not actually have many of the regulatory issues surrounding other physical products. For example, the environmental clearance and things like that, which may not at all be relevant.
you're wondering where my robot co-host is, she's taking a break, but she will be back later. Meanwhile, it's time to get you two top voices from the first day of NPC. We caught up with not one, but two unicorns, one all the way from Silicon Valley and one from India. Let's talk about the Silicon Valley one. We're talking about Zenefits, a unicorn in the space of HR software. We caught up with its CTO and co-founder, Lux Srini, to really get a sense of where they are in terms of SaaS. They also opened an office in Bengaluru recently. So the India market, as far as this the B2B space is concerned. We also caught up with InMobi's co-founder and CEO Naveen Tiwari. Remember, they turned profitable a few months back. China's showing big traction for them. They are also seeing huge traction in the video advertising space in the US. Here are these two unicorns on Startup Central.
This is a really, really interesting space. I've been watching it for the last couple of years pretty closely, ever since we opened an office in Bangalore about 2.5 years ago. Because we hire a lot and we run into startups. The SaaS space is definitely interesting here. The biggest question is whether you can sell on the phone is going to be a critical question here. Without the handshake deal, are people opening to buying software that is sold over phone, that's sold on the internet? If that question can be cracked, I think SaaS has huge potential.
Do you think there is still some resistance there in terms of, because now we see even small and medium enterprises investing a lot in cloud-based software, cloud-based CRM, other applications. So do you think that resistance is still there?
I think there is no resistance for using a cloud-based CRM or a cloud-based application, but I'm talking more about the sales cycle.
The sales cycle.
Whether you expect somebody to come to your office and sell to you, or you can just sell over the phone. Because especially when you're selling to the smaller companies, customer acquisition cost becomes a real thing.
Right.
So that's why I was mentioning in my talk here about how well our email marketing worked. And that was a really, really low way for us to acquire customers, especially in the SME space.
Based on your own experience of opening an office in India, what approach do you think works best for people here? Will it have to be a combination of various methods, or have you seen changes in customer behavior? I mean, if you have to really give SaaS startups a few tips and tricks, what would they be?
Talk to your customers all day long, sell to customers all day long, and just do what works. It's as simple as that. Because what works in one place doesn't work everywhere. So that was the best advice that we ever got. When we started the company, the only 3 things that we did was eat, talk to customers, and maybe sleep.
Maybe sleep. Okay, I hope the maybe is gone away now. But they've also been. It's also been a sort of a tumultuous journey for Zenefits. It's had its share of ups and downs. What learnings are there for you from there? I mean, is it sometimes not good to go, full aggressive without following all the norms? What takeaways are there? What lessons can other startups learn from Zenefits' mistakes and where Zenefits is today?
I think one of the biggest thing was we went from 0 to 1,700 employees in 18 months. In 36 months. That's not a good way to scale.
Company, any organization in the world has to go through this transformation of a startup to an enterprise. Anyone. And that's the logical next milestone. To say that, when you try to become an enterprise where you're doing things a little differently, changes the culture of the company, etc., may not be necessarily correct. It is obviously, you're right in the sense that that's the more common thing that's available out there. But you look at some of the best companies in the world, especially in the space of technology, highly profitable, scaling, and they have all the right things which is done from the culture point of view. Whether you take Google or a Facebook or an Apple, you can just keep going down the Amazon, you can keep going down the list. They are very, very innovative companies. So startup is a state of mind, is a state of how the organization has to function. And I think in every phase of the company, people have to figure out how does that state of the mind doesn't change. So yes, we have to work on it, but it is absolutely achievable. It has to be the way. I've found that to the contrary, people are a lot more innovative, a lot more entrepreneurial, post us essentially having a very sustainable business.
So they know that, we are not going to shut shop tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Or we are not dependent on the next round of capital or
So therefore
VC's mind.
when they make a decision, then they make a decision now, they know that decision can stay on its own and it's not dependent on somebody else. Right? Previously, 3-4 years ago, if you were to ask me, hey, I want to do these initiatives, I would go look into the bank account and say, well, you know what, I can't let you do this. Today, that's not the case. The decision making is
Do you
different.
still have to, take hard calls when it comes to investing in growth vis-a-vis maintaining that profitability? Does that hamper you in some sense of plowing back into areas or growth areas or new markets?
You always have to make that decision, by the way, and I think that discipline of prioritization where money should go in is the change from a startup to an enterprise. That leads to an outcome which is all good for every one of us to say, look, you're a sustainable business. But that prioritization is what's missing when you are not thinking as deeply as one should in all the large organizations in the world. That prioritization is a business as usual. So that's, I think, what we are effectively doing right now, and it is a hard decision, but it is an absolutely important decision to make.
Right. China has obviously worked very well for you. I saw you mentioning a lot about Japan, Korea. So in terms of the growth engines going forward, is it going to be largely, the big Asian markets for you, and Australia? Is that going to be the primary driver?
Yeah. So look, our growth in China and rest of Asia is very visible, and we are seeing that. I think the very interesting fact over the last 1 year, 1.5 years has been our US business has been growing drastically right now.
What has changed for you there, or what has worked which didn't work for you earlier?
We have now found massive success in the video advertising space in the US, and we have made a niche for ourselves in a place where we are extremely successful. The platform is extremely advanced, and the world is also moving towards video advertising, right? So if one were to do video advertising in the US also today, we are one of the most preferred partner out there, and we are clearly seeing success of that.
And the key theme for NPC this year, of course, is how innovation is fueling digital revolution in India, and particularly how this is going to disrupt companies and sectors as we know it. Now, to really discuss the impact of digital on enterprises, we had views coming in from practically every key sector, be it M&M, Tata Steel, Jubilant, Yes Bank. Listen in to an excerpt of that conversation.
The propelling force for us to change is a changing consumer. All of us have moved so much over the last few years that our expectations from marketeers, from brands has evolved and has changed dramatically. So we need to ensure that we respond to that change expectation. Also in our industry, competition has changed. I mean, a few years back, we were competing with a Pizza Hut or a McDonald's. Not anymore. There are a bunch of young, hungry, nimble, fiercely competitive startups, aggregators, who are expanding the market, so they are playing a very good role as well, but they're also competing with us. So we need to make sure that we transform our organization. I mean, the first 20 years for Domino's Pizza, they were about becoming a really good quality, replicable, scale QSR across 250 cities, 1,000 stores. The next 10 years are going to be about pivoting into a food tech company. And the 10 years thereafter are going to be about becoming a tech company which also happens to sell food. So that's the journey we are engaged in. Inshallah, we'll get there.
I'm sure you will. Sarojit, would you like to?
Two things. We are a 110-year-old company, and this year we have been awarded the most ethical company in the world tag. That's a lot about what we are. So when you describe, when you say, when you ask somebody, and Tata Steel employees are very proud about Tata Steel. So when you ask somebody in Tata Steel, what are you? We are a 110-year-old company. We are, in the top 10 steel producers in the world. We are a Fortune 500 company. We are number 2 in mining in India, etc., etc. So, but that's what you are. The question then is, what do you want to be? And what you want to be is that we want to be leading the nation building, which we have done for about 100 years. And if you want to be leading in the nation building, you need to have very different capabilities. You need to have a very different speed, and you need to have a very different mindset, which is what Jaspreet talked about. So how do we get that speed? How do we get that mindset? And how do we get that bunch of capabilities to do what we have been doing very consistently over the years, which is ethically helping this nation move forward?
Great, Jaspreet, please.
In comparison to a 100-year-old company to a 15-year-old company, Why we're doing what we're doing? Because for the speed, agility, to be in the business, to serve the customers, to understand the customer behavior, to look at how fast we can actually catch up with their mindset, with your mindset, with my mindset, to look at how we can digitally transform, digitally be aware of what is happening in the industry and be ahead of our competitors, or competitors, not I'm saying other retail banks, but Amazons or any technology company who's actually playing a role in the payment section.
I could just add to that, the consumer who goes on Uber or who goes on Amazon and transacts, when she comes to a Domino's app or to any other brand, expects nothing less, expects the same degree of experience and same seamlessness of interaction. So we have to elevate what we provide, and we have to raise our bar. We can't just say, oh, we are better than ABCD brand. The consumer has to find that migration across platforms absolutely seamless and intuitive. So we want to be, for example, we say it as a Uber of food, and that's our ambition. And well, at one level it seems quite right, but obviously it's going to be tough to get there, and that's the journey.
No, that's great. Sorry, you were going to say something, Prashant? No, in fact, just skipping out of my moderator role, I do tend to resonate with everything that the panel is saying. We're trying to do the same thing at the Mahindra Group. And what I hear the panel say is that, look, the customer is pushing us, which is great. And then, these new disruptive startups are pushing us. I was very happy to hear no one saying my board is pushing me or my CEO is pushing me. And in fact, it's been a journey. It actually started with peer pressure, okay, and then now it has come to a stage where actually customers are pushing you.
Now, apart from the impact of digital on enterprises, one key disruption that everybody is talking about is blockchain, and particularly what this will do to banking as we know it. Now, who better to tell us than bankers themselves? So NPC had executives from SBI, ICICI, as well as Yes Bank alongside Intel to really give perspective on what they think about blockchain. Are they skeptical? Do they really think this will be a game changer? And what will happen to traditional banks in the process? Listen into an excerpt of this panel.
Blockchain will not be able to solve everything, but yeah, definitely there are a couple of use cases where we found that blockchain would have a fantastic post implementation it can derive a result into huge benefits. So one of the areas when we thought that as banks we have the traditional IT systems and largely disconnected ones, and most of the time the problem arises about reconciliations amongst those systems. So that where we realize that technology like blockchain, most of the time we keep talking about creating networks with other banks or outside the bank network, but here we thought that blockchain can be of immense use while reconciliation is a major problem across the banking segment.
Anywhere where there is a reconciliation.
Anywhere, right? Yeah. And yeah, it can be enterprise-wide problem which can be solved using it. So that was one of the use case which emerged while we had this discussion that what else we can put on the blockchain, because when you talk to external network, it takes a lot of time to bring people on board. At times it requires regulatory approvals. So we thought that while we continue our journey in terms of experimenting and scaling up the use cases outside our ecosystem, but within ecosystem, like we have branches, overseas branches, subsidiaries. Now all this there's a clear cut case for taking them on the blockchain and reap that benefit.
Anup, job like in an S bank, because you don't have to convince your internal staff, right? You are inherently modern. You don't have the problem of probably you don't have as many you could say legacy systems and issues to solve. You don't have mindsets to change. In a sense, right? You have the tick mark. You just say yes, let's get it done, right? So given that context, but you still have the regulator, and you still have to play within the regulatory regime. How do you juggle this? Bringing together technology, regulatory aspects, and of course what the regulator wants in terms of they themselves driving absorption of technology.
with that, we come to the end of this edition of ET Now Startup Central. But don't go anywhere. We will get you more coverage of NPC. And Mitra, thank you so much for being a wonderful host on ET Now. Maybe we should shake hands before signing out. There you go. Thank you so much. And stay tuned to ET Now for many more interesting stories from the world of startups and technology.